On this episode of Inspiration Nation, we are back on our SEMA project, the 1988 Chrysler Conquest TSI. And today, we are going to be going from this to this. And we're going to be accomplishing that awesomeness with a set of these. Yep, another set of D2 coilovers, because is there really another brand of coilovers that you would prefer to use? And if you are interested in getting yourself a set of D2 coilovers for any vehicle, especially a Conquest or a Starion, make sure you hit up our boys over at TMI Racing Products. They'll get you straightened out. But with all that being said, because most of you've probably already thumbed through to watch us start working on the car, we're just going to get into it. This is an intimidating coilover set because there is some welding involved. But I will say, out of all the coilovers, it's actually really simple. It's a whole lot more simple than the G37 coilovers we did. Oh yeah. It's super easy. And if we don't explain it well enough, D2 actually provides a nifty little instruction manual to use. So, but if you like the more fun way, you'll follow us. Let's get at it. First thing you want to do is get your car jacked up, get the wheels off the ground, put some jack stands underneath it, be safe. Get your wheel off and get your brake caliper assembly off. Ours has already been removed because we are waiting on our fancy schmancy big brake kit. So, sorry. No NASCAR tire guy for me. Once you have all your brake assembly off, you need to pull the wheel rotor and all that good stuff off as well. But there's going to be two bolts and they are 17 millimeters. There's one here and there's one identical on the back side. Now I'm pulling the rotor and the hub and everything off because you have to actually weld the front coilover system together. So you kind of need all this stuff off. Ah! I need a rag. We need a shop assistant. I'm the shop assistant. We will not be reinstalling the dust shield because I'm not sure if our fancy smancy big brake kit comes with it, if it'll work with it, or what. So I'm just going to leave it off.
Say it's a 12.
It is a 12 millimeter. Now that you have the bare spindle, take your 17 millimeter and you're going to pull these two bolts out. Now you got to go to the top and remove these three 14 millimeters. It shouldn't fall on you. You're going to have to do some prying to get it out. But I want to get these out. Make sure you use a ratchet that's 3 miles too long for the job. Because better to have the leverage and not need it than need it and not have it. Pry bar, do a little jiggle jiggle. And it's out. Oh, that was easy. Now this is the scary part for most people. Certain cars are like this. 240ZXs way back in the days are this way. But this is the actual shock body is mated to the hub or spindle. You actually have to cut the factory shock body, and you're going to be doing it the directions say 25 to 30 millimeters. So we're going to call that 1.25 inches here in the States. So you're going to take a piece of tape. I like using 1-inch tape and then come up 1/4 inch off the bottom, mark it and tape it. But something you need to know, it's not in the directions. This shock has oil inside of it still. So you don't want to cut it with a torch or no crazy thing like that. You want to use a saw, but be mindful of all the juices that are going to come flying out of this thing, because it'll get everywhere. So what you're going to want to do, cut it the 1.25 inches up high, and then you're going to take this bad boy, which it unthreads, this sleeve unthreads, and you're going to want stay. And you're going to hammer it down on there smooth and weld it up. But I like to take and come up a 1/2 inch and drill you a good size hole on this side. Rotate your brake line mount to the opposite side and drill one there for a couple rosette welds, because you're going to have 1.5 inches of existing sleeve, and then this is going to go over top of it. So you'll weld the 2 rosette welds, and then you'll weld all the way around it. You're not going to be able to get up in there welded. It's just not going to happen. So throw the rosette welds on there for safety and roll on with it. Now again, you want to cut about 1.25 inches up. So I like using the 1-inch masking tape to mark it, and what I'll do is I'll come off the body about 1/4 inch and wrap it around, and that gives you your cut line. You cut it on this top line, and then that's all the sleeve you'll have left to weld onto. That's the part they don't warn you about. But we did. Now comes the fun part. This is what you're looking for. The tab needs to go straight out, away from your spindle. But you see the height you have? You gotta drill for your rosette welds. Now, we got 1 1/8 inches. I got a little happy with my cutting. And then on the opposite side, we're gonna go boop. And now we'll drill those holes. And I'd like to take this moment to say thanks to Jegs for hooking us up with this sweet little fabricating table. If you guys are looking for a set of drill bits, try the Bad Dog Tools drill bits, and their cutoff wheels are fantastic as well. Now that you got your holes drilled and you have your spindle piece clean and ground to where it will provide a good weld, make sure that your brake mounting tab is in the rear of the spindle, away from the actual spindle piece there. Get you a solid surface, a block of wood, give it a little tap tap. Like that. But you gotta give it one more hit. Always. You always have to send it home with one more. And that is what you're looking for, with a nice tight seal. It's gonna stick up in the back because it's actually welded in at a slight angle, but you wanna seat it tight there. And now it's time to, I'll have to clean that up just a little bit more so we can get a better weld on it, but now it's time to go weld it. Screw it all back together. This is gonna be how you set your ride height. We're not real sure what our ride height is gonna be yet, for the simple reason of we're still waiting on tires, and we gotta get the engine back in. So we're gonna get it close enough to where it looks pretty while I walk in the shop and it gives me motivation. This is something to note. These coilovers can be put on wrong. They are supposed to go in like this. You don't want camber like this. So we're gonna go with sure you put them in right.
So your slots. Little slots? Or are we going that way?
You want them leaning towards the engine.
Yeah.
Now that you got the top bolted in, you come underneath. And this is where you're gonna set your ride height. Again, we don't know. I'm going 14 inches from the stud to the fender well. Probably gonna be wrong, but that's where I want it to set at. You just reverse everything. Those two 17mm bolts, you're gonna go under here. It helps to have a jack. I'm gonna see if I can do it without one. Probably gonna hate life. I'm gonna hate life. I like this little scissor jack.
That looks great.
It does. We use this thing all the time. Run our 17mm up. Now, I will say, I'm gonna send this home with a really tight. I'm gonna leave it on you guys to look up the proper torque specs because there's a right way and there's a B-ray way. And the B-ray way doesn't have a ratchet right now. B-ray way is just 3 ooga-doogas. We torque it on race day. Now it's time to put the brake rotor on. You guys ready? Watch really close. 3, 2, 1. Now we move on to the rear. The first place we're going to start is the top 3 bolts. You don't have to start here, but that's where we're starting.
It's kind of weird. I feel like I need to get the roll cage video out now because we're going to see a roll cage in this car.
Disclaimer, we know there's a roll cage in here and we have a video coming, but we're waiting for our Momo seats to finish the cage. This is where what we do probably isn't going to apply to your build because we are going with big, magnificent brakes. Magnificent. We're going with big, magnificent brakes. We're going to just disconnect our brake line up here and not worry about the rest of it because it's going to have to come off anyways. You are probably not going to want to disconnect your brake. You're just going to want to unbolt it from this tab and lay it over out of the way because your D2 coilover comes with the tabs to bolt these back up. And you probably can get away with not even doing any loosening of your brake system so you don't have to bleed any brakes. Now it's time to unbolt the bolt that actually runs through the spring. I'm gonna call it a socket. I'm not real sure what it is, but this coilover actually slips down into the spindle. And you have 2 bolts that go in from the top and 1 that goes through the middle, which clamps it tight. So we're gonna get that one loose. That clamps it tight first. And if I forgot to mention, that is a 17mm. And a wrench and a socket. Or a wrench and a ratchet. Now it's time to undo the top 2 little 17mm that go down into the same socket. We've got a chisel. You can probably do it with a flat screwdriver or something, but it's just to try to spread this out a little bit. You don't want to go crazy because you could possibly break the casting, but just a little something, something. You want to undo this back control arm bolt. And it's a 22mm. How you have this welded ring and then the bolt has an off-center washer. That's how it adjusts in or out. There's a whole lot of beating upward. Try not to beat on the hub because you don't want to crack it or anything, but this, if it's taking you a lot, it's because it's a hard job. This sucks. Other than I undid the wrong brake line. And that's why it's a pain in the butt, because this gets all down in there and it gets little corrosion, rust and stuff. Worst part of the whole job, right there. Don't dread welding the front, dread getting the rear out. See what I did there? Just put you a little screwdriver or something in there and tap it in just so gently to open it up. Then you get all your bolts in. Because again, worst part of the job. There. Now that you got those tight, you can pull your spreader bar apart and reinstall this one. And again, find your own torque specs. I go on Ooga Doogas and Now reinstall your twisty camber bolt. And it goes in pretty easy. Set it back where you had it. And ours was vertical. There. And now you gotta do the same thing. The half moon only goes one way. Now you push it up through the hole and tighten up your top bolts. At this point, this would be where you guys would set your spring rate and ride height, and you would take a hammer and a punch and set the actual locking nuts with that. Don't use the wrenches, they'll come loose. And there you have it, guys, a basic idea of what to expect when installing D2 coilovers on your Mitsubishi Starion or Chrysler Conquest. Now we'd like to take a second to give a big shout out to TMI Racing Products and Bad Dog Tools for sponsoring this channel. Now don't forget about that subscribe button right there. You gotta click it, because you don't want to miss any of the action, and you definitely don't want to miss this car going to SEMA.